こんにちは。マンチェスター日本探検隊のハウスユコです。今日はマンチェスターのそばのストックポートというところに来ています。実は今日はたまたまフォークフェスティバルが行われているようで、私の後ろでは大変な騒ぎですが、今日はこれから、ちょっとあの辺にある本屋さんに行ってみようと思っています。それでは行ってみましょう。Yeah. So, can I have your name, please?
Hi, I'm Helena Gaudikova.
So you're from?
I'm from Czech Republic and especially from Prague, from the capital.
So may I ask what you're doing there?
In Prague, I worked in the National Museum, where they have a wonderful collection of Japanese arts and crafts. So I've been dealing with curating Japanese arts and crafts for over 3 years.
Wow, so you're a curator there?
Used to be a curator there,
wow.
Yes.
So that means they already had lots of Japanese, collection of Japanese art?
Yes, there is a magnificent collection of Japanese art. There's over 25,000 items of Japanese arts and crafts, mainly dating to Edo and Meiji periods.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know anything about it, but why do you think they collected them?
Mainly these were collected by Bohemian travelers in the 19th century, in the latter half of the 19th century.
Really?
Yes, yes. And these would travel to Japan and collect basically whatever they came across and found in the Hungarian Empire. So the founder of the museum where I used to work funded his fellow friends, travelers, to travel all around the world and bring various items, arts and crafts. And some of these would travel to Japan. And some of them would draw a lot of inspiration from Japan and would return there.
So they did bring stuff from Japan then?
Yes, they brought a lot of stuff from Japan, and basically that's how the collection started.
How interesting!
Yeah.
By Bohemian travelers, that is very, very interesting.
There has been quite a number of these, and they're being researched quite a lot during over the past number of years. So there are new publications being published about these, and it's very, very interesting.
How the Japanese arts are accepted there?
I think that's a very tricky question, because Japanese art was loved and admired mainly after the Japanese infatuation broke out in Paris. So that was very similar in the Czech lands. But I think Japanese art was not always interpreted in a proper way, because if you imagine travelers coming to Japan from what used to be the Austro-Hungarian Empire, they wouldn't really have any education about what Japanese art is about, and they couldn't have possibly. So they were basically exploring, and they had not much of a background knowledge. So when you go through the old archives in the museum and you read the inscription that they wrote, or the descriptions of the items that they provided us with, you can tell that they didn't really have much of an idea what they brought, and it's only up to the subsequent generations to interpret what they actually brought and put it into focus.
Very interesting.
And it's
so they didn't know what they are really bringing back.
In many cases, for example, we've been with a colleague of mine. We've been researching the Japanese arts. Japanese Buddhist art collection within the museum's collection, and this one constitutes of quite a number of pieces, which there was no information provided of what they were, and it's evident that the people that brought them, they only bought them because they thought they were beautiful, but they had no idea what they actually depict, because of course understanding the Buddhist pantheon, that's very demanding. So it is demanding even today, and for them it was absolutely impossible to understand images of what deities they would actually bring.
So maybe they just intuitively got impressed, they thought it was beautiful, so they brought back with them.
Exactly.
I think that's a true art style, though.
It is.
You don't have to, shouldn't have to have knowledge to understand or appreciate. I think so.
Yeah. That's why you have curators to interpret these things.
Very interesting. So, as a curator, curator, exactly what kind of thing you did, or what were you dealing with?
I basically worked with several sub-collections within the collection, and one of these areas that I researched was the set collection of the Japanese Buddhist art. Subsequently, me and my colleague researched the collection of Japanese traditional toys, which is quite an exceptional collection to have because there's not many collections of such outside Japan itself.
And those are brought back by the Bohemian traveler too?
Yes, yes, and that is even more fascinating because these travelers basically had no idea that they were actually bringing back toys. In many of these, in many cases, these items were just considered to be souvenirs. Or
so they didn't know they were toys?
They didn't know they were toys.
Oh, interesting.
So it basically wasn't until me and my colleague brought up the idea of maybe, these shouldn't be categorized as souvenirs. They should be categorized as toys. And that's how the collection was formed.
How interesting.
And of course there is a magnificent collection of woodblock prints, ukiyo-e and nishiki-e in the collection. So there are thousands of prints, which of course they were very easy to bring back from Japan, so basically every traveller who went there brought a collection of these. So that's another area.
Are they from Edo era or Meiji?
Most of them come from late Edo and then Meiji. So it's a mixture. And we do have some old ones as well, but most of them are late Edo and Meiji.
How interesting. So I understand you had published books.
Yes, there are books that were published in English about the collections that I mentioned. So this one is about the Japanese Buddhist art from the collection of the museum, which was published bilingually in Czech and English, and it has loads of wonderful pictures as well, photographs. So if anyone is interested, this one is definitely good to have a look at. Another one is about the collection of toys, which was published in English.
I like the title.
Yes, and we have a Japanese version of it as well.
Wow, I see. That's perfect. That's good.
So I think this is quite a lovely book because it shows the history of the collection, the collectors, and also it has loads of wonderful photographs of the toys, which is quite lovely to see.
That's unusual for a museum to have a Japanese toys.
It is indeed.
Excellent.
It is indeed. And it was my great pleasure to cooperate with some museums in Japan, including the Japan Toy Museum in Himeji.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, that's right. And they were absolutely wonderful, great inspiration and great help. And I loved visiting them.
So did you go to Japan to visit them?
Yes, several times.
Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So they contributed massively to this book because they pointed my attention to things that I wouldn't have noticed otherwise. So
how interesting. How did you become a creator?
Well, I think my original interest in Japan came about due to the fact that I went to Japan as a child, and that's how I formed the connection to Japan. And I just, you know how it is with Japan. Once you get to know the country, you never stop loving the country. So that's how my interest formed, and because I studied art history and also painting, so I'm an art historian and an artist as well. So I basically, both in my theoretical work and in my practical arty work, I have always drawn inspiration from Japan in some way, and that's why I was very happy to become the curator of the Japanese collection, and that's why even nowadays in my painting I can see a lot of influences from Japanese art as well.
Was it easy to become a curator?
No, I don't think it's very easy to become a curator.
I didn't think so, so I was impressed.
Yes.
Was there lots of competition?
There's definitely a lot of competition, and it was a great privilege, and I have enjoyed it massively.
So you were chosen basically?
Yes.
Not wonderful.
I'm the chosen one.
Well, excellent.